It's football. I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
a confident young man, a superb athlete,
Gary Seegers.
All right, welcome in. Winning Cures Everything. I'm your host, Gary Seegers. That's right, it is the Tuesday, May 7th edition of the show. Lots to talk about in the world of college football today. You guys know the website, winningcureseverything.com. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and the podcast. Of course, leave a nice 5-star review. Jump in the comments. I want to get your opinion on these things. So, all the different topics that we are going to hit today. I want to start off with the tornadoes in Oklahoma that happened last night. I don't know if you guys watch Ryan Hall on YouTube. He does a fantastic job, he and his team, of covering everything that is going on in the world of weather. And they do incredible severe storm coverage. Whenever there are tornadoes anywhere in the country, he is on top of it, and they did a great job. I stayed up until like midnight last night watching all the stuff that was going on near Oklahoma City, into Kansas, Missouri, some of the stuff, I think they had some stuff in Arkansas last night, but, thoughts, prayers, all that T's and B's, I guess, out to everybody that is, there was one town in Oklahoma that just got absolutely wrecked. Absolutely wrecked. I watched the movie Twister when I was 13 years old. Still to this day love that movie. But it scared me straight. And I started paying attention to weather a lot more back then. And then really, as you get older, late teens, early 20s, late 20s even, you don't worry about that stuff. You kind of feel invincible, etc. And then in 2011, when the tornadoes hit Tuscaloosa, it kind of changed things for me as far as paying attention to stuff and making sure that I am in a good position. I had a friend that was actually in school at Alabama when that was going on, and luckily his place didn't get wrecked, but the neighborhood right next to him did. And, it's just nuts to think about because it was, who knows when that kind of stuff is going to happen. So, the Ryan Hall footage, coverage, whatever, last night was intense, and he is really, really good at what he does. So I highly, highly recommend that you pay attention to what he is doing. Let's start off with this. Topic number 1. We're going to talk bowl games. Nick Castellanos, I hope I said that right. Nick, I didn't write it down. Capillari? I don't know. The guy that handles bowl season, if you go to bowlseason.com, he expects that there will be more bowl games in the future. Let's start off with this, okay? The Arizona Bowl was sponsored by Barstool for a while. It was broadcast on Barstool last year. They had it on the CW for the first time because the CW is trying to get into live sports. I don't blame them. But Barstool did their thing for a little while. It's a lot of work to do live sports. So if you don't have the backing of Penn, etc., it's kind of difficult to do that. So they're still going to do their rough and rowdy. But Barstool is no longer the presenting sponsor of the Arizona Bowl. That now belongs to Snoop Dogg. So Snoop Dogg's Arizona Bowl presented by Gin and Juice. I thought that was cool. But you're going to see this a lot. They made it out like this was some huge, historic whatever thing, and we're going to see this more often. It's just, you're going to have this kind of thing. We had the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, and then we had the, whatever it was last year, LA Bowl presented by Gronk, like Rob Gronkowski. You're going to have this kind of stuff. So I would not be surprised to see The Rock, because he's got the UFL thing going on. I would not be surprised to see, the WWE Bowl or whatever. Like all these big brands that understand that there is a mix between college football fans and other things. Like the NFL at this point should know you're going to have fans that are into golf, that are into hockey, that are into the NBA, etc. Yes, they are all competitors, but you're going to have brands that kind of cross-pollinate, we'll say. Cross-pollinate. I think that's a good word. So, but the executive director of bowl season has come out and said that he thinks that there won't be less bowls, there will be more bowls going forward. Now, as it sits right now, if you look at last year, there were 42 bowl games. 2 of them were semifinals. 6 of the bowl games going forward are going to be playoff games. Now, if you've got playoff games, let's say 4 of those are with teams that were not in bowl games before that. 2 of them are going to be semifinal games. Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, whatever. If that is the case, then you will have 40 bowl games this year with 80 different teams. 80 out of 134 is like 59.7. So 59, almost 60% of your sport is getting to the postseason already. In the last 3 years, they still did not have enough bowl game participants that made it to 6 wins on the season. I would imagine that we're going to get some kind of an NCAA waiver so that more teams that only win 5 games are going to be able to make bowl games. But how many more games are we talking about? I mean, the reason why we have so many right now is ESPN. Does ESPN want to generate more live events? Do they want to rent out more stadiums and get more teams that not a ton of people really care about? This is what I'm curious about. Why would you have more bowl games? Unless you are planning on some of those bowl games going to home sites, right? The second round of the college football playoff going to home sites as opposed to what it currently is, which is the first round, those are all home games, and then you move to bowl sites. So maybe you're talking about bowl games replacing the playoff games. Maybe that's it. But at that point, I mean, do we really need more bowl games? Like, I'm not certain that I understand. I'm not certain that I get it. But, I mean, hey, the 5-win teams that made it in the past 3 years, Minnesota last year got to the Quick Lane Bowl. And then before that, you had Rice that made it due to their APR. And you had Rutgers the year before that. So Rutgers went, I believe, 5-8 over the season. I think they had 13 games. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And so, they have a plan, the bowl games do, as far as getting rid of opt-outs. And they said that basically NIL is going to come in-house. And this has to do with the NCAA versus House lawsuit and the settlement and all this, all the back NIL pay, etc. But that it's all going to come in-house. Basically, they are planning on the schools being able to pay the players, and part of the contract, one of the stipulations, would be that they are required to play in the bowl game. Now, I can't imagine that the number is going to be huge for them to play in the bowl game. I don't know how this sounds like employee stuff. So if you don't want them to be employees, then you're not going to be able to force this. So I think this is just wishing. This is wish casting, because I don't think you're going to get rid of it at this point. Especially, I think you're going to see some crazy stuff this year. I think you might be able to see load management in college football, because you're talking about a team potentially playing 17 games this year. I mean, that is just absurd for a college football team. Now, I know that the clock rules have taken out some plays in the games, but last year we saw it was not a drastic difference. Like, if anything, teams just sped up a little bit to make sure that they get the number of plays in. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I don't know that I would put any stock into what the bowl games are saying as far as expansion or as far as players no longer opting out of bowl games. So we'll see. we'll see. Topic number 2, Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. They last week went after the former Colorado safety, Xavier Smith, who transferred to Austin Peay. He is now transferring over to UTEP along with Scotty Waldron. This was a story from Max Olson in The Athletic about all of the Colorado players that were kind of pushed to transfer out when Deion first got there. And it was just kind of a accounting, right? It was making, just seeing where these guys are, what they're doing. It was not a shot at Colorado. It was none of that. It was just, we've never seen anything like this, so what happened? And, yes, if you go back and look, there were not a lot of those players that were very good. I mean, Colorado was there's a reason that team went 1-11. But what I'm curious about is why Deion Sanders and Shedeur would even go down this road. I understand if you're Shedeur, you're trying to protect your father. But if you're Deion Sanders, there's no reason, especially after Shedeur posted what he did. And his post was, something along the lines of, I don't even remember this guy. He must have been mid at best. But why take the shot if you know that you're a star player, if you know that everybody's going to be looking at this? And last I saw, this thing's got 18 million impressions on his tweet. 18 million people have seen this tweet. Absolutely mind-blowing. That is some of the craziest stuff I have ever seen over bashing a player that obviously was not good enough to play at Oklahoma or at Colorado, excuse me. I don't know. Deion came out and said, because Deion he came out afterwards and was taking shots as well on Twitter. So he gets asked about it, and he responded and said that he's got to do better, but, quote, he was bored. I understand being bored, but you still got to make better decisions if you're going to be the head coach. Now, maybe this has to do with, Bud Elliott came out and talked about maybe this has to do with roster retention. You don't want to be the guy that gets bashed when you leave Colorado, which there's been a lot this spring as well. But I don't know any purpose that this could possibly serve that could make Deion look good or Shedeur. Punching down is rarely a good thing. Rarely does it give you any kind of advantage. Rarely does it help with anything. So I'm not sure that I understand the motivation behind this. But obviously we're going to see more of it, I would imagine. I don't know that this stuff is going away. The drama show will continue. All right, topic number 3, EA college football. The latest news from that. If you didn't already know, Kirk Herbstreit confirmed that there will be multiple broadcast crews based on the magnitude or the importance of the games. So if you've got Alabama against Western Kentucky in the middle of the year, you're not going to get Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler, right? That's just not the way it's going to go. So we will see who they end up getting for that. I would imagine that some of these guys, David Pollock, et cetera, right, those guys, they are going to be on some of the other games. So who knows? The other latest news is there's going to be multiple cover athletes for different versions of the game. Now, I was a little bit surprised by this, but maybe I shouldn't have been, because you look at all the WWE games, and those are 2K games, but you've got the regular WWE 2K24, and then you've got 2K24 WrestleMania Edition, 2K24 Platinum Edition, whatever. I'm just making stuff up at this point. But there's 3 or 4 different versions of the game. I guess I should have assumed that EA was going to do some of the same stuff. So, and I don't like that. I hate the fact that you can't just sell a video game, but they are all trying to make more money, so they will sell add-ons and packs and all of this stuff that appears to be features in the game are likely going to be add-ons that you have to purchase. And if that's the case, I don't know. Like, I'm going to spend a bunch of money on this game. I know I am. But it is very frustrating to know that there's going to be a bunch of different ones. As far as the cover athletes go, do we have a star problem going on in college football this year? Because, like, Shedeur Sanders, I think, is like the big star. Quinn Ewers is there, but is he really somebody that people gravitate towards? Arch Manning is a backup. Jalen Milroe, okay. I don't know who the stars are. Normally there's somebody, Caleb Williams was the guy last year, but I don't think there's like the guy this year. Maybe I'm nuts. You guys tell me. But who are the stars? Who are the ones that are going to stand out that people want to do national commercials with? All that. I don't know that there are any out there. So I'm very, very curious about that. Topic number 4, NCAA versus House. The Big Ten and the SEC are working on a revenue-sharing program with the athletes. We knew it was coming to this, but good gracious. As it sits right now, the settlement looks like it's going to be around $2.7 billion over 10 years, I think. I think that's what they said. That means that each school is going to have to pay somewhere around $27 million in back NIL pay. That's pretty nuts. And then, of course, going forward, you're going to have to put that much into it because of how much the TV contracts are. There's a lot of different plans. Ross Dellinger has absolutely nailed this. Go and check out his Twitter account. He's on Yahoo Sports as well. But Dellinger, he is super involved in this. He has talked to all the bigwigs. He's gotten all the information. I highly recommend his stuff because he's got it laid out much more detailed than what I've got driving in a car, right? But from what I understand, there are a couple of different proposals out there. They're going to find a couple, basically if a school makes $100 million, $20 million of it would go towards athletes. I don't know that that's going to be enough to appease the powers that be, whether it's in courts or whatever. But what they're trying to do right now is get this settlement done before next January. January 2025 is when it could all hit the fan, right? January 2025 is when this thing could potentially go to trial if a settlement is not reached. If it goes to trial, there's a chance that they could have to pay $4 billion in back taxes, and then a jury gets to award all of this stuff. They get to set what's going forward. I don't believe that the NCAA or any of these conferences want that to happen. That's why the Big Ten and the SEC are working together. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see. This is a wild time in college athletics. Absolutely wild. Topic number 5, staying on this same vein, UAB. This is over a week ago, but I did want to hit on it. UAB, their full team has joined athletes.org. And what this is basically a players association, right? UAB has become the first D1 team to join a players association, and the entire team did it. Trent Dilfer came in, gave him a bit of a presentation on what this company or this group does, and sold it to them that they're going to be able to negotiate for revenue from the sport. Okay, I guess I get that. Dilfer trying to pour gasoline on stuff. I believe that's what he said. I'm trying to pour gasoline on this early because this is the future of the sport. And I get it, but UAB is not exactly in the same position as, Big Ten and SEC teams. There's not a lot of money to go around from the AAC. I mean, these schools make about $7 million a year in athletics media rights revenue. So I don't know how much of that is going to go back to the players when the schools still giving them the opportunity. See, a bunch of this stuff doesn't make sense to me. In the NFL, the way that it is set up, it's all collectively bargained. You understand that the players make the league. They don't spend a bunch of money on excess crap. because they've got it. It's billionaire owners. Like, if they need something, they'll build it. But when you've got a state institution, it's not like money is just falling out of trees, right? So you have to be able to earn that money. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm very curious. Topic number 6, North Carolina. They have proposed a bill to mandate schools to play other in-state schools. So what this means is games like North Carolina against App State, North Carolina State versus East Carolina, Duke versus Charlotte, Wake Forest against whoever, NC Central or whatever it is. But basically, all of the power conference schools in the state would be forced to play other in-state schools yearly. Now, what I'm curious about, the timing of this does seem rather suspect because these teams have done this already. North Carolina played App State in football the last 2 years. NC State routinely plays in-state schools. 4 of these power schools are already playing each other in the ACC. Now, they haven't been in the same division, but they are going to play routinely going forward because they're all in the ACC. What I'm curious about is whether or not this is in preparation for potential conference realignment. There was a big talk about how the North Carolina legislators, eventually I'll be able to talk, the politicians in North Carolina were going to try and force it to where North Carolina and NC State were going to have to be a package deal. We heard that talk with Washington and Washington State. We heard that talk with Oregon and Oregon State. At one point, we heard that talk with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. We have always heard this. It never pans out to happen that way. The Board of Trustees will do what is best for whoever it can get into whatever. So if North Carolina is potentially moving to either the Big Ten or the SEC, and NC State does not get that invite, does this force North Carolina to play NC State every year? Does it force North Carolina and Duke to play every year in basketball, regardless of what conferences they're in? That's what I think this was set forward to do. It's more forward-looking than it is right now, right? They are not worried about East Carolina playing against Duke. I think they are more focused on, well, probably not Duke. Duke's a private school. Wake Forest is a private school, so it's probably just North Carolina and NC State. But they're not worried about North Carolina having to play East Carolina. They're not worried about NC State having to play against Charlotte. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about making sure North Carolina and NC State kind of stay peers no matter what happens going forward. So, who knows? Again, another one of these where we'll see what happens. We'll see. Topic number 7, Brett Yormark. He talked at the Big 12 League meetings, and he said that that the Big 10 and SEC partnership has been overstated, overblown a bit. Okay, I guess we could say that, but I'm not certain that I necessarily agree. I think it's a pretty big deal that both of those conferences are working together, considering how rocky that relationship was just, 2-3 years ago. And so I think it's a big deal that Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey are actually not only on speaking terms, but that they're working together. I think that's a big deal. The CFP meetings, the negotiations there, the fact that everybody is working together, that's a big deal. But Yormark did say that the Power 4 chemistry is the best that it has ever been. And do we buy that? Are we sure that it's the best that it's ever been? Because I think everybody knew that the Big Ten and the SEC would have left the negotiating table and they would have started their own thing and they would have left the Big 12 and the ACC to rot along with the rest of the G5 if they didn't get their way in those negotiations. Now, we all know Brett Yormark fully believes in the future of college basketball media rights. He's the one that eventually wants to split basketball and football media rights because he thinks that the Big 12 media rights in basketball are going to be worth a fortune. He's not wrong. The ACC and the Big 12 are at a position of power when it comes to college basketball. They have got the biggest brands in the sport outside of Kentucky, probably. Texas, I guess, is one. That's what we're looking at here. I think that they understand that, okay, the SEC and the Big Ten, that's the football bunch. The basketball bunch is over here, and this is what we're going to do with it. Now, how good are they all going to feel if Clemson and Florida State get out of the ACC and that thing ends up falling apart? How will they feel then? Will the chemistry still be great? I'm very curious. Very curious. I think the Big 12 is set up for a while, so they're not going to have to worry about things too much going forward, at least until we get into the 2030s. But partially because there's not a school in the Big 12 that I believe the SEC or the Big Ten wants. The ACC, that's a whole different matter. Whole different matter. All right, topic number 8, the Houston Cougars. The Houston Cougars have told the NFL to buzz off. The NFL, I believe, sent them like a cease and desist, like told them, hey, you can't wear this, you can't do this. And it was in reference to the baby blue uniforms that kind of pay homage to the Houston Oilers from back in the day. Houston told them, screw you. We're still going to do it. You can't tell us what color schemes to wear, etc. The jerseys don't look exactly like the Oilers, so I think that's how they're going to get away with this. The helmets don't look exactly like the Houston Oilers, so I think that's the direction they're going. But it does surprise me that there is a college football team or a college that is willing to tell the NFL, yeah, you can stick it. I mean, I found that very interesting, and good for them. Good for them, because I love the look of those uniforms. Like, I thought it looked fantastic. It's weird seeing Houston, who is, that bright red coming out in baby blues. That's not really a typical thing, but it popped. It looked good. Uniforms look good. Finally, number 10. This is a bit of a weird story, but I had to share it. Okay, every now and then I like talking about these weird stories. There was an escaped zebra that was captured near Seattle after spending days roaming around in the Cascade Mountain foothills. It was nearly a week. It was a long time. And this zebra was one that escaped along with 3 other zebras, and they were being transported. And I looked at 3 or 4 different stories, but they were being transported from Washington to Montana, and I can't figure out anywhere why they were being transported. Was it to a zoo? Was it wild zebras in Washington that were being taken to Montana? Like, I'm very curious about this, because if anybody knows, toss it in the comments. Toss it, in the chat or whatever. Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, @GaryWCE. I want to know what happened with this zebra, because it was a big social media thing for a couple of days, because, you saw people did pictures of the zebra at Seattle Mariners games. They had it on top of like a Ferris wheel. It was all kind of stuff. Like, the zebra was just out enjoying life in Seattle. But why was it being transported? Where were those zebras going? To a zoo? To be released out in the wild? Like, are there zebras running wild in Montana? I don't know what's going on up there. Somebody fill me in. I want to know. But this is the zebra that the other 3 were captured almost immediately when they got out. This zebra was a different breed. This was a male zebra. Yeah, a male zebra that hopped a fence and was gone. And the other ones all got captured and wrangled and put back up. And I guess they got taken back to Montana. But man, like, how nuts to have a zebra just wandering around in Seattle or just outside of it. I could not imagine. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. You guys know what to do. Hit me up on Twitter, @GaryWCE, all the socials, @GaryWCE. WinningCuresEverything.com is the website. I'm working on a new website. I'm trying to rebrand this thing. I'm trying to I'm trying to fix a lot of things. Make this show more efficient, better, etc. That's what I'm hoping to do. So, check it out, winningcureseverything.com. Subscribe if you have not already. Share it out with your friends. You guys know what to do. And with that said, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. God bless college football. And, of course, I hope all of your tickets cash this week.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter @GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.